How many of you used to listen to Aesop's fables when you were growing up? I always loved those stories. They usually had animals as their main characters, and there was some story and a moral to the story, which is a lesson. And I think the reason why I always appreciated those fables is that I think that's how life is. We each have our stories, we go through things, and sometimes people say everything happens for a reason. I don't know that I have that perspective as much as everything has a lesson in it. There's always something to learn from anything that we go through, which doesn't necessarily mean it had to happen that way, but once it has happened that way, there's a lesson we can learn. So I'm going to share with you a story that is my story, it's not yours, but I hope that the lesson I derived from it is a lesson that everybody here can apply for your own stories. So this story starts a year ago, July of 2022, and from a routine mammogram, I discovered that I had breast cancer, which was a big shock because I've been healthy my whole life. I'm 66 now, so I was 65 last year. I had never had surgery. I had never been in a hospital for myself. I'd been there with other people. I'd never even had general anesthesia. And although I am not against Western medicine, the whole paradigm that it's based on is very different from how I think. For example, a test result that is a positive test result means you have a disease. And a test result that is a negative test result means you don't have the disease. So that whole paradigm is based on looking for disease. It is not based on looking for health or even preventing health. So once I found out that I had this diagnosis, I went to the surgeon. She drew pictures and showed me what treatment options there were. And I decided to have surgery followed by radiation. They did not tell me that I had to have chemo, which I was grateful for. And I didn't really debate with myself, although I didn't like it. I didn't debate with myself about the surgery and radiation. However, the third step in the standard treatment protocol is to take a drug every day for 5 years that suppresses hormones. And that I did not feel good about. I don't know if most people know that hormones affect every single system of the body. They're related to the chakras, so if you suppress hormones, you're also suppressing your chakras. And they have side effects that affect every part of the body because the hormones go to every part of the body. So when it was the oncologist assistant who tells me about this drug, tells me, why they recommend it, and the list of side effects. A full 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with side effects, such as hot flashes, muscle pain, night sweats, fatigue, mood changes, depression, joint pains, nausea or vomiting, bleeding, blood clots, cataracts, bone fractures, heart attack, stroke, and endometrial cancer. So the percentage probability of these side effects is the least is 0.5%, the most is 40%, and except for the last two, stroke and endometrial cancer, all of the other side effects range from 4% probability to 40% probability. That is a lot. So I didn't want to be stupid, I wanted to be responsible, so I did as much research as I could. Part of the challenge in doing internet research for alternative treatments is that the internet is controlled by people. And most of the people who control the information on the internet about health and disease is the FDA, Federal Drug Administration, and the American Medical Association. So if you're looking up alternatives to a drug, you don't get any results about that. You get all of the information about the drug because the drug company has charge of that information. And oftentimes, the so-called alternative treatments get taken down, and I actually know a friend who is in Tulsa who knows a man who has had great success working with essential oils to cure cancer, and they made him take all of that stuff down, and if he didn't, they were going to arrest him. So it is a little challenging to try to get some kind of objective research. I talked to a few doctors, and I still was very uneasy about the idea of pumping every day for 5 years a chemical into my body that was going to suppress my hormones. So I have a friend in California who had a very similar diagnosis. She went through surgery, she went through radiation, and she told me about this thing that's called a breast cancer calculator predictor. It's, you put in your age, you put in the stage and the grade of the cancer, the type of cancer, and it gives you a percentage probability of a recurrence or spread. So I put all my statistics in, and it turns out that without taking this medication, for me, with my statistics, the probability of recurrence or spread of the cancer is 3.7%. 3.7% is a less probability of this spreading than the percentage of probability of all of the side effects of this medication. And the medication is supposed to reduce the probability by half. So that would reduce my probability from 3.7% to 1.85%. So basically from 4% to 2%. 4% is still a pretty small percentage, especially because there's no guarantee if you take the drug that you won't get cancer, and there's no guarantee if you don't take the drug that you will get cancer. So it's kind of like a gamble. So I had the surgery in October. I had the radiation in November and December. I go to see the surgeon after I'm done with radiation for the first follow-up, and she examines me and says, things look like they're healing and you're taking the medication, as a statement. I said, well, no, I'm not. And she said, why not? And I started to say, well, I have this friend, and I was going to tell her about this breast cancer calculator, and she cut me off. She said, well, I don't know what your friend is doing. This is the science. It's your choice, but it's the science. She turned her back. She washed her hands. She walks out of the room and said, have a Merry Christmas. This was like a few days before Christmas. So there I am, sitting by myself in the examining room, wearing only, those paper things they give you after they tell you to take your clothes off, feeling completely naked in all ways, not just physically, but emotionally, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. And about a week later, well, before I tell you about that, she says this is the science. Well, this is the science of the research that's been done on this medication. It's not the science on other things that I was doing, like I completely eliminated sugar. I'm not a big sugaraholic, but I did have some Girl Scout cookies in my freezer. I had a bag of Dove dark chocolate pieces that I like, and so I gave away the Girl Scout cookies. I gave away the dark chocolate. I gave away the gourmet jam that someone had given me for a gift. I don't use a microwave. I stopped using plastic containers to store my food because plastic is considered an endocrine disruptor. I walk every day. I take vitamin D. There are other nutritional supplements. So that's the kind of science that I go on. It's not like I'm just saying, oh, well, I'm just not going to take this drug and do whatever I want to do. I was and still am doing things that I consider to be health-producing and protective. So, and there's other things too. I walk every day. I do yoga. So a week after I see this surgeon, I have a dream that I am doing the yoga pose that is called child pose, but in my dream, it's called turtle. So I know some of you do yoga. I don't know if everybody does, but child pose is a very restful, restorative pose. You're kneeling down. with your head down and your hands behind you, just like the way a baby sleeps. So I don't know if you can see this picture, but it looks like this.
Yeah.
And so when I had the dream, I thought, okay, it's telling me to do child pose. It's a good pose for getting sleep and getting rest, which obviously I needed. And I thought, that's interesting. I didn't know it's also called turtle pose. And sometimes yoga poses have different names. So I Googled yoga pose, turtle pose. Well, it turns out there is a pose that's called turtle pose that is not it. It's kind of a weird pose, and I don't know if you can see this picture because I couldn't get a very dark version of it, but here's one in orange, and here's one sort of gray. So the actual turtle pose in yoga pose, you're sitting down, you have your legs out in front of you, you have your arms out underneath your legs, so kind of like how a turtle would look if it was, had its legs and arms splayed out. Anyway, that was not the pose I was doing in my dream. So then I thought, okay, some people say, well, dreams are just weird. In my experience with dreams, the weirdness component of a dream is kind of a call to look deeper, to ask questions. And so I wondered, why would this be called turtle pose? So think about a turtle, which actually does look a lot more like this, I think, than the turtle pose. So a turtle has a shell, and the shell is its home. The shell is protective, and when a turtle is feeling threatened, it draws in its head, it draws in its limbs, so that it can be enclosed within this shell. And I thought, oh, that makes sense. I've been doing all of this research, I've been asking all of these people, I've been reaching out to try to find out what should I do about this drug. I actually was asking my dreams, I keep a dream journal, and so I was asking my dreams questions about what do I need to do for healing? How can I be secure in my choices? And I was thinking, okay, I'm going to have a dream that some shaman is going to appear and say, this is the best choice. Or I'll see a healer who will say, yes, this is what you need to do. And I didn't have any dreams like that. But I do believe that this dream was in response to my question, what do I need for healing and what do I need to be secure in my decision? The answer being, I needed to quit reaching out and I needed to go inside. I needed to be still, I needed to be quiet, I needed to be able to listen to my own inner voice. We talk a lot about intuition, we talk a lot about listening, but to do that, it means quieting all of the outer chatter and quieting our thoughts. And for me, when I am doing intuitive work to help someone else, that's a fairly easy thing for me to do. When it's for myself, especially when it's something that's very emotional, that is way more challenging. And so sometimes I have challenges with myself to discern, is this really my inner voice? Is this my emotions? Is this my ego? So I didn't just do it once, but I practiced clearing my mind, going into meditation, continuing to ask as much as I could how to be centered in this decision. And in the Bible it says, be still and know that I am God. And I believe that by being still, that is how we know our own intuition, how we know what our soul needs, how we know what spirit is communicating. So I decided not to take the drug. And please, I'm not saying this to give anybody advice or say what you should or shouldn't do. I'm saying this is what I chose. And a few weeks ago, at the end of June, I had the first follow-up mammograms after all of this treatment, and I got negative results, which, as I said, in the medical community, it's good when you get a negative result. So I feel very grateful for the prayers from this community. I feel grateful for the support that I've had from people. And I feel very grateful for my dreams, and this dream in particular, to help guide me into what I needed to do. Not that my dream was making the decision for me, it was guiding me as to what I needed to do so that I could make a good decision for me. So the lessons of the turtle, that's one, is to realize that being protective, being in a shell, does not necessarily mean that you're being defensive. It does not necessarily mean that you're withdrawing from the world in a bad way. You know, we live in a very extroverted society. And in our extroverted society, it's considered good to be sociable, to be out, to be among people, to, you know, the sun is good. And it's considered bad to be by yourself and to withdraw. And I mean, if you're withdrawing out of fear, and if you're isolating yourself, that is probably not a good thing if it's producing loneliness. But if it's withdrawing from external influences that are confusing or distracting, it's a very good thing to be able to have some inward, inner time to withdraw from all that outside stimulus. You know, once upon a time, we didn't even have the opportunity to be up and around and awake 24 hours. I grew up just outside of New York City, and New York used to be called the city that never sleeps. Well, now pretty much every city is a city that never sleeps. And so we have to choose when we're going to sleep. We have to choose when we're going to be inside. We have to choose when we're going to have some alone time. We have to choose to be still, because our society does not encourage that. So that's one of the lessons of the turtle, is that we can withdraw for our own peace, our own security. Another lesson of a turtle is that sometimes it's good to be sensitive. It's not bad to be aware when we need to protect ourselves from things that are threatening. Another lesson of the turtle, and this is, I think, actually in Aesop's fable, the story of the tortoise and the hare, turtles move pretty slowly. And sometimes when we need to make decisions about big things, we can feel like we have to rush into something, we have to jump to a conclusion, we have to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I mean, I had a lot of people who said, oh, so have you made a decision yet about that drug? It's like, well, I'm still reflecting, I'm still considering. And so sometimes being slow to reflect and consider is important to know that we're making the right decision. You know, and sometimes people say, oh, you're overthinking it. And being reflective is not the same as overthinking. Being reflective means considering what are all of the factors that I need to look at here. I think another lesson from the turtle is that the turtle carries its home with it. That's what the shell is. And to me, the idea of being at home means that I feel safe and secure. And the idea that I can be safe and secure wherever I am, with whomever I am with, as long as I am centered in myself, that is very meaningful. So if you research different traditions, in most traditions, Native American tradition, the Eastern tradition, the turtle is considered a symbol of wisdom and longevity. In fact, the I Ching, you may have heard of that, which is a Chinese system of divination. The whole I Ching circle of symbols, that is based on the pattern of a turtle shell. So, I can't even remember what cartoon it is. There's some cartoon that has a turtle that stands on its hind legs, and he's the wise person in that cartoon. So I did not write the reference, but I did find this quote that says, "The turtle spirit is a wise teacher who reminds you that once you are clear about your goal, stay true to your path, even if your progress seems slow. If you feel like you're unsure of your path, it probably means you just need more information. Study, explore, meditate, and reflect. This process is also part of your journey. We all need to retreat into our shells from time to time, away from the chaos of the world. When your turtle is your power animal, it's important to give yourself the time you need to go inside, take care of yourself, reflect, and recharge. Then you will be better equipped to stick your neck out, embrace new experiences, and bask in the sunshine of life. So I hope that in whatever decisions you're facing, that the lesson of the turtle can bring to you some guidance and some wisdom, and that you give yourself permission to have that time to be still and quiet and reflect.